meaning the one who takes power and strength from the Supreme and transforms all negativity. The power of the Shiv Shakti is the power of love, of compassion, and benevolence. It is a power that brings us back to the awareness of the spiritual identity of the self. Saraswati, the one who listened to the knowledge from the Supreme Soul and became the embodiment of knowledge through inculcation. The playing of the sitar represents the donation of knowledge to bring realization. Jagadamba, the one who gives eternal blessings of peace and happiness. Durga, the one who takes power from the Supreme Soul and removes all weaknesses within the self and helps to remove the weaknesses of others. Kali, the one who is fearless and courageous, one who destroys all obstacles and negativity within the self and in others. Gayatri, the one whose words become like a mantra that removes all negativity. Vaishnavi, the one who radiates the light of purity and empowers others to become divine through pure vision and pure thoughts. Uma, the one who brings hope, zeal, and enthusiasm. Santoshi, the one who brings a feeling of deep contentment in others. Lakshmi, the one who donates the unlimited wealth of spiritual knowledge and virtues.
Thank you, Sister Parina and Sister Avani, to put this video together. And now, I know Sister Jayanti is with us, and I welcome Sister Jayanti with a bouquet of flowers. Please accept the flowers. Thank you. I have known Sister Jayanti since I came to Brahma Kumaris about 35 years ago, and received a lot of sustenance. She is our mentor. Have learned a lot. I can have separate session to share all of that, but not taking too much time. I welcome Sister Jayanti to Dallas and to the whole world, probably those who are watching. And now Sister Nima will read Sister Jayanti's introduction.
Sister Jayanti was born in Pune, India, to Sindhi parents who migrated to England in the 1950s. From the age of 8, she was therefore exposed to Western education and cultural influence. Her return to India for several months at the age of 19 led her to begin her life's path of spiritual study and service with the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University. Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University has more than 8,800 centers in around 140 countries. As European Director of Brahma Kumaris and a spiritual leader and teacher for 50 years, Sister Jayanti has dedicated her life to self-transformation and service to humanity. Brahma Kumaris is an international non-governmental organization of the United Nations, and Sister Jayanti has been organization's representative to the UN in Geneva since 1982. She has championed the cooperative role of spiritual organizations in creating a just and peaceful world. She has brought spiritual principles to the discussion tables of the politicians, economists, business leaders, scientists, and nearly every stakeholder of our times. Her role within the organization is broad. As European Director, she supervises activities in 28 countries. She travels the world as a keenly sought-after speaker and broadcaster. Many trips during the early 80s were pioneering in nature when she helped establish the work of the university in London, Hong Kong, the Caribbean, Japan, South Africa, as well as several European countries. Since 2009, she has headed the BK delegation to the current series of United Nations climate change conferences in Copenhagen, Mexico, Durban, Doha, Warsaw, Paris, and has spoken internationally on the link between consciousness and climate change. Sister Jayanti sees the erosion of spiritual values as the underlying cause of the cries that the world is facing today. Welcome, Sister Jayanti.
So now I request Sister Jayanti, who has accepted our invitation to be with us this afternoon. Although having her very busy schedule, Sister Jayanti is with us. And now, Sister Jayanti, I will request you to speak and then lead us to meditation at the end. We'll have a couple of questions and we will take you on tour of our centers at the end.
Om Shanti, a greeting of peace to my sisters and my brothers, and congratulations and greetings and good wishes for this festival of 9 nights that begins today. And in particular, we heard this very lovely short description of this festival, Navratri. And so we are remembering God, the one who is the bestower of all aspects of goodness, but we're also remembering God as the one who gives spiritual power. But in particular, especially in India, this power has been represented by the feminine energy. And so the Shiv Shaktis, the ones who have taken God's power and used it in their lives, they have been remembered as the feminine ones. Of course, God's power is available to absolutely every human being, irrespective of gender, of age, of caste, or any other external factors. But somehow, whenever there's a spiritual gathering, it seems that more sisters are drawn to that gathering than brothers. I'm just looking at the gallery now, and again, I'm noticing that there's maybe 80% sisters and 20% brothers. Well, we're happy that 20% brothers have joined us, but I hope they'll inspire more of their kind to join us in future, because God's power is really for all. But within this particular concept of Shiva, the supreme, the being of light, the benefactor, this idea of God as the benefactor and the being of light is something that comes in all traditions through all the different ages. And so there are memorials of that light as being the supreme in different ways. And when we meditate in the Brahma Kumaris, we meditate on that point of light. And as we make that connection of the inner being, the being that I am, the spiritual being, the soul, not this physical body, but the soul, the being of light within this body, I make contact with the source of all positive attributes, and I'm able to draw those qualities within myself. And this is why I say this is open to everyone, because each one of us is a soul. And in making that connection, we all have to forget this physical skin that we now take to do all our physical activities. But stepping away from the consciousness of the physical form, coming to the eternal consciousness of the inner being, then we make that connection. And as we make that connection, the power of peace, the power of love, the power of truth is able to reach us. I've been asked to share some experiences of that power and how it has transformed my life. Well, I don't know how many people I'm addressing today, but it's a large number, I imagine. But even when it's a physical gathering, and sometimes in London, we've had gatherings of up to 8,000. And maybe in India, there have been gatherings that I might have spoken in, which number about 25,000. So where did I get the ability to be able to speak to such large gatherings? You may or may not believe me, but I was extremely shy. And to speak to 2 people was fine. To speak to 3 people was a problem. And I didn't want to do it. I'd stay silent. So how did I develop this power to speak to multi-thousands? I have to tell you, it wasn't actually any effort on my part at all. Yes, the effort was first making the decision in choosing this path, because at that time, there was a lot of confusion. I didn't know which direction I wanted to go in. And so even that power to be able to crystallize what are my choices and to make that choice, that power must have come from up above. It couldn't have happened otherwise. And so at this moment, I'm thinking that, yes, really, right from the word go, having experienced the power of love from God, I also experienced very quickly the power to be able to make a choice. You know, they say that it's a very stressful world we live in, and there can be many, many factors of stress, many things. But there's one particular factor of stress that maybe we are not always aware of, and that is when there's too much choice and not enough wisdom with which to make our choice. That is a big stressor. And I didn't realize it at the time, but certainly I was going through that stress of too many choices and no wisdom with which to be able to make my choice. And that's why I actually started to meditate. And within the space of 6 weeks, I knew what I had to do. I had made my choice and I wanted to go on a spiritual journey. And I was very fortunate that I had no bondages, I was free, and so I could make that choice and make it a full-time choice, as distinct to most people who practice meditation, but of course they also then use meditation in their day-to-day activity to fulfill all their responsibilities. But at that moment, I was very lucky. I had no other responsibilities except to myself, so I could choose what I wanted to do. But that power to be able to decide, and 50 plus years later, to know that, yes, it was the right choice, and to have absolutely no regrets about the choice that I'd made, well, I think that power came from up above. But further on, as I continued my journey and experienced all the different aspects of power that God can fill us with, another one of the powers is the power of truth. So often we have so much confusion about what is right, what is wrong. We have confusion about our beliefs because at school we are taught about evolution, we are taught about science, and we're not taught so much about God. Maybe we are taught about God in the religious lessons. I don't know whether all schools have religious lessons now, but in those days they did. But even within that, any of the different traditions, and you'll find that they don't match up in everything they say. They do agree on one thing. All the traditions agree on the values of the human spirit. Values are universal, but they don't necessarily agree on the concept of God, on the concept of soul, or many different things. You know about all that. But even more interesting than that is that if you take up any one religion and you begin to explore it, then you begin to see that there are a few questions that arise. And in some traditions, they'll tell you, well, it's a mystery. You're not supposed to know. Well, I wasn't quite satisfied with that. And in some other traditions, they tell you, well, these are truths that have been there since time immemorial, the beginning of time. And so you just have to believe. And again, that didn't quite fit. And so as I began my journey of studying meditation, understanding about the self, understanding about God, it was an experience of enlightenment, God's light coming to the soul. And of course, enlightenment isn't just a flash and then that's it forever. No, it's an ongoing journey in which gradually you understand and more light comes into the soul. But at that moment, just knowing that I'm a soul, knowing that God is a being of light, the Supreme Soul, was very, very powerful. It literally was answering all the questions that I'd had about soul, about God, about life. And for those who haven't yet taken the introductory course in meditation, I strongly urge you to take it. And this isn't an advertisement because our courses are totally free of charge, but just to share with you the fact that if what I'm looking for are answers to existential questions, then definitely the teachings of Raj Yoga will show you the way. And of course, it's totally open. It's like any course of study. You study and then you decide what is it that's useful for you or not useful for you. And so the study of Raj Yoga opened up a whole new dimension for me. It made me realize that we can do something about the state of the world. And 2 months after I had started my journey, I'd already made my decision that this was to be my life. I was meeting with the founder in Mount Abu. I had that amazing fortune of meeting him many times in my teenage years also. But now I was meeting him with a new vision, a new understanding of his role as the instrument to share these insights and this amazing knowledge. And he explained to me that the cause of all the problems in the world was the negativity that we carry in ourselves, the anger, the greed, the attachments, etc. And if we were to be able to deal with these, then definitely the world could be a better place. There could be happiness, there could be abundance, there could be good health for everyone. And it sounded like a dream, but he made it become real because he said that it is possible to do all this, but you can't tell other people to deal with their negativity. You have to deal with your own negativity and experience God's power and the power of transformation within yourself. Then this can help others and inspire them too. And so he made it very clear that it's these negative forces that have been blocking our vision becoming a reality. Because I think we all share a vision of a better world, a world in which there is peace, a world in which there is harmony, a world in which there is justice. Now, compare that vision with the reality of today's world, and you can see that it's 180 degrees difference. A world of darkness today, injustice continually in some form or another, sorrow coming in one form or another, and illness striking in unknown ways. Maybe the most scary thing about COVID is that you don't see it, and you don't see if you're infected or you're infecting others, or you're in touch with somebody and they're infecting you. Maybe that's the most scariest thing of all. So you don't know where to go to be safe. And so then you're told, okay, stay at home. And that's fine. But it's caused a few economic problems across the world also. But to have a world which is free from all of these problems, yes, it's possible. And so that change in my thinking, that transformation in my consciousness, now that was definitely God's power. And so today, if I have a limited vision of the world and I see a future that's very bleak, what I need is to connect with God, understand God's teachings, and with the power of those teachings, I'll be able to have a different paradigm. The physical, material paradigm doesn't work. We've seen that it's a reality. But it's possible to have a spiritual paradigm, which isn't just a question of meditating for 10 minutes every day. It can begin like that, but that's not a shift of paradigm. A shift of paradigm is when, instead of thinking that the world is a materialistic place and the only thing that's important is matter, my physical body, the physical possessions that I have, whether it's my house, my car, or all the things that I label as mine. If my paradigm is that physical paradigm, then I'll always be trapped by ego and anger and all the other negative forces. If I shift my paradigm and I understand that all these secondary, primary is the soul, the spiritual being that I am. And when I focus on my own identity as that being of light, and I understand that everything else that I do should actually be in the consciousness of who I am. So I carry on in the same job. Nobody asks me to leave my job, but now I do it with a different awareness. It's not just to earn money, but rather the people I'm working with, it's a place where I can share peace and happiness with all those I'm in contact with. At home with the family, I'm not leaving the family. I'm very much with them at home. But now, instead of an exchange of sometimes happiness and sometimes pain, that's usually the situation in families. Sometimes we speak to each other with love and sweetness, and sometimes internally something is paining us, and so our words are sharp or they're very short and angry. And maybe the child doesn't understand why I'm reacting in the way that I am. There's nothing wrong that the child has done, but my responses are not of love and joy. And so within families also, our nearest and dearest ones, we're not able to share the love in our hearts. We're not able to share the happiness we would like to. But we can change all of this with a spiritual awareness and a spiritual consciousness. I don't see the children as my possessions. I'm a trustee. The children belong to the divine. I didn't make them. I didn't create them. I didn't make the souls. But they have been given to me in trust. And so I have to look after them as the special, precious treasures that they are, and share with them God's love and light and happiness. And so changing my paradigm from a material paradigm based on matter, on the consciousness of the skin, and thinking that everything is primarily matter, coming to the awareness of a spiritual consciousness is the journey of enlightenment, but it's also the journey in which my life undergoes a beautiful transformation, in which, because I am experiencing God's love, I'm able to share that with others. Just imagine, here's a piece of string, and you're pulling it in one way, and I'm pulling it in the other way. What's going to happen? Well, no surprise, that string is going to break. And so when there's a tension in which one is needy and the other one is also needy, and two needy individuals come together, snap. The relationship becomes very tense and sometimes even breaks. But if even one of those individuals fills themselves with love from God and all that they need that God can give them, it changes dramatically. If I'm able to connect with the source, I take whatever it is the source can offer, and then I'm not giving to the other, because I would become empty very quickly if I were giving, but I just have to stay connected. But then I'm able to be an instrument to share with others that love and that happiness. And the relationship stays not just intact, the relationship becomes a very sweet one. It becomes a much stronger one. And because it's now based on a spiritual truth, that we are actually connected with each other eternally, then there's no problems within that relationship. There's a massive change that happens. And so the power of God is experienced in little ways. I say little, but just imagine a relationship that's tense before, and now it becomes one of love and harmony. That's actually a big miracle in itself. It's not such a little thing. And so these are the miracles that we keep seeing continually in our lives. Things that we might have found difficult before, they become very simple, very easy, because we're now solution oriented. Usually people are problem oriented. Ask a person, how you're getting on? And they'll have a list of moans and groans that they want to share. And depending on your patience, whether you're able to listen to them for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or 60 minutes, they'll carry on telling you all the problems that they're having to deal with. But in fact, all the problems are there for all of us. But all those problems are there because more or less we create them. Did we create the COVID problem? Did we create the fires in California? Did we create the fires in Australia? Yes, we did. All of us together, collectively. I didn't go and light a matchstick and set something ablaze, but all of us together, having created the consumer society in which there's absolutely non-stop consumption. Just take from each other, take from nature, and you see the state of the world. And there's absolutely no denial that it's human intervention that has caused all the upheaval in nature. The exploitation of nature and the destruction of our home is the actual cause of both COVID-19 as well as the natural disasters that we are seeing. And there's a lot of information about this in the net, and so I won't go into the detail of all of that. But just to point out that having understood that we are the cause of the problems and having accepted that responsibility is actually a great freedom. Why? It doesn't free us from the responsibility, but accepting the responsibility means I can take God's power and now begin to do something about it and bring about positive change in the situation. Is it possible to sort out all the things that we have done to nature? Why not? Let me take the power of understanding, the power of truth from God, and now what I can do is to look at nature with a very different vision. Treat nature as sacred. It is. I didn't make nature, so who's the creator? It's the one above. Nature is God's creation. Can I see nature with that love, with that respect, with that sign of sanctity? Nature is sacred. And in that awareness, I want to care for nature. I want to look after nature. I certainly don't want to exploit and abuse and mistreat nature. And so the whole concept of spiritual teachings, do no harm, ahimsa, non-violence. All the traditions have reminded us, do no harm to humans, do no harm to any sentient beings, do no harm to nature, but be the stewards, the trustees, the ones who are responsible to take care of nature. And so you can see that a paradigm shift is needed to be able to restore some sort of balance into the way the world is moving. And so spirituality and the power of truth helps us understand all of these things and get things into perspective so that I know what it is I need to do for myself. I know what I need to do for my family. I know what I need to do for the world. And so for myself, this paradigm shift meant that I felt I could now do something for others. There's a very interesting non-vegetarian example I'd like to share. They say that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach a man how to fish, you feed him for life. And it's a little bit like that. If I see poverty and my heart feels compassion, well, that is human and that is absolutely right. Let me give that poor person some food and help him. But can I do something more than that? Can I show a person what it is to have a higher consciousness? Can I show a person what it is to be able to understand what is goodness and move in that awareness so that they begin to change and work from a higher dimension? And yes, working from a higher dimension can actually relieve poverty. I've seen it in some cases in personal connection with myself. A change of consciousness and you begin to think differently. You begin to behave differently and new possibilities and opportunities and doors open up for you. And so when I saw that, yes, this is the way in which I can truly help the world, the choice to make this my life was very, very simple, very easy. Because I'd been exposed to the poverty in India. This was in 1964 when I'd first gone back after having been in London for some years. So in 1964, I was 15 and I was seeing huge poverty then. We were driving from the airport, it was about midnight. The flights from London would land at midnight in those days. And so we were driving from the airport to the city center. And it was monsoons because summer holidays here begin in July. And July is monsoon time, especially Bombay. And along the sides of the road, the pavements, there were shanty huts, but they were built of cardboard. And have you seen what happens to cardboard if it's exposed to violent rain? well, it all begins to melt. It begins to fall apart. So the homes that these people had built by the roadside were cardboard, and their homes were washed away. They didn't have a home anymore. It had all melted in the rain. And the first feeling I had was, I want to go back to London, but I couldn't carry on. And it took a while to begin to feel some sort of peace inside. But those scenes, and then we moved to another city, Pune, which is where my grandmother was. So, and there wasn't such visible poverty in that way. In Bombay, it was stark, it was staring you in the face. In Pune, it wasn't quite like that at that point. And it laid an impact in my mind that changed my life, because I knew that I couldn't just live for myself. I had to do something for others, but I didn't know what. And spirituality helped me understand that the most important thing was changing mindsets, changing a particular vision, so that instead of just seeing the darkness today or even darkness in the immediate future, you're able to have a vision of the highest potential of human beings. And spirituality showed me that the highest state of human beings was that of purity, of love, of truth. But it wasn't just that I was hearing that. The beautiful thing was that I was seeing it. I was seeing it in the life of Mama. I was seeing it in the life of Baba. And you saw that video with several photographs of Mateshwari Saraswati, the mother of our organization, and then also all the other seniors, the dadis, who gave us a huge amount of wisdom and a great deal of love and sustenance. I was seeing those qualities demonstrated in their lives. And so if here's a group and you see the group is actually walking their talk, you don't often see that in the world anymore. But here you saw this group actually walking their talk, and you could see that the connection they had with the divine was one of power translated into love, power translated into truth, power being expressed in their life as peace and purity and joy. And I knew that if I continued to follow that path, it was possible for me to become like them also. And so that power of decision came very quickly. I know that for many of you, you're confused. You're looking at what's going on in the world and you're wondering, where is reality? What is illusion? It's very difficult to know. It's the era of post-truth, and there is so much misinformation that's going on around that you have to check it out. 10 years ago, if something was in the papers or on television, you said, well, it must be true because that's the news. Today, we don't say that anymore. We've become very cynical because we know that there's a lot of misinformation going on. So to have that understanding that even allows you to see the difference between illusion and reality, falsehood and truth, we need that power today to be able to discern, to be able to know what it is we should do at this moment so that we can move our life in the right direction and also support all those others around us. I focused a lot on the power of truth and the power of love, because I think that these are the two paramount powers that God is able to give us, and not in the future, in your next birth or somewhere else on a different planet. No, it's today. Connect the awareness of the self with the divine, and the experience of God's love reaches you immediately. Connect with the divine, and you begin to understand things differently. You begin to catch a glimpse of the truth very early on. And yes, then to be the truth is a lifelong journey, but you're able to begin to catch a glimpse and understand more and more of that truth. But more than that, understand how to apply that truth in your own life. And so the journey is a great adventure. It's a journey that's going to take us to a better world for sure. I just want to touch upon one more thing before I close and open for questions. The power of peace. Is it possible for us to have so much peace within that we're able to change an atmosphere and bring peace and calm into an atmosphere of opposition or aggression? Yes, I've experienced that myself many, many times. I've seen the daddies work with the power of peace and transform an atmosphere. Can you imagine 25,000 people sitting, and not just sitting for an hour or 2 hours, but sitting, say, from about 6 o'clock in the evening all the way through till midnight, just holding peace. They're listening, but the atmosphere is of total peace. Now, this wasn't an experience that I had just once. It would be about 12 times. It would be about 12 times within the space of a year. Because we would be having these meetings where we would sit in meditation in Mount Abu, and we would experience this power of peace within the gathering. 25,000 people holding peace and silence. Can you imagine what that was like? Well, I hope one day you won't just imagine, but you'll be able to visit us at our headquarters and feel the same. Within a gathering of 10 people, it's easy for 1 or 2 people to become restless. Keep multiplying the numbers, and yes, it's very easy for a few hundred to be restless. The power of peace was incredible. So I know that there's a power that we can draw on and experience for ourselves, but also it can be a collective experience. And the power of those vibrations reach far beyond any walls. They're able to reach out into the world. And I know that within a while, there will be peace in the world. Our hopes, our wishes, our dreams will be fulfilled with the power of God's love, the power of God's truth, and the power of God's peace. Let me stop here and see if there are questions, and then we can also share a meditation together. No questions?
Jayanti, can you share an experience of facing any obstacle or obstructions in serving and for your progress journey?
Well, what I want to do is, because I was talking about the power of peace, I was remembering one particular situation, and I'll just share that with you, because when I said I've experienced the power of peace, it was a memory of an incident. I was traveling from a place called Haridwar back to Delhi, and it was early in the morning. We'd gone to one of these special religious ceremonies in Haridwar, the Kumbh Mela, and some of you know that it's a huge, huge, big thing. But we were traveling in a car from Haridwar. We'd left at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And by about 6 o'clock in the morning, we were about still an hour away from Delhi. And it was a highway, but highways in the 70s. This was in 1974, in the month of February. And so it was winter time. So the morning was not so light and bright, but about 6 o'clock in the morning, it was very dim light. And the road was clear, it was straight ahead, it was empty. Either side, there were there was a little village that we were passing through. And I was sitting in the middle of the car in the back seat. And just looking straight ahead, I saw this old man dithering, and he didn't know whether to cross or not to cross. And you could see it, and the car wasn't moving too fast. It was one of those old ambassador cars, so I don't think they could travel very fast anyway, but it was moving. And then at one point there's an impact, and I don't know what's happened, but I realize afterwards that he has decided to cross, and the car has hit him, and the car has moved to one side of the road, and there was one of those three-wheeler auto rickshaws. It has hit that, and it has ricocheted and gone to the other side, and it's hit a tree, and thankfully then come to a standstill. And a village that was totally sleepy, and one old man who was awake, maybe the noise of the impact of the vibrations, and the whole village, all the men seemed to come outside, and there was a huge commotion, a lot of noise. And we got out of the car, and it seemed as if the sister who had been with us, she was an elderly person, and she hit her head against the back of the seat, but she was okay. And we were concerned that whereas the old man couldn't see anything. And then I noticed that the driver seems to be missing and can't see the driver. And there's a whole commotion on one side of the road. And it's all men, no women. And I'm not thinking consciously of anything, but I just by instinct know that the driver must be in the middle of that mob. And I'm at that point, how old? 24, something like that. And so I was pretty young, and I was in this costume. So maybe seeing a young woman in this costume made the crowd part, or maybe any woman, and they would have parted, but the crowd parted just to let me through. And sure enough, it was this man, the driver, in the middle of that mob. And they were ready to beat him. And I just stretched out my hands, and I said, my Hindi was very poor. And I just said, wait, 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 the police are coming. Now, I didn't know if the police were coming or not, but I knew that I had to stop this crowd. And the crowd became silent, and they waited. And it needed just those few minutes of buying time. Otherwise, they would have just beaten him to death, I think. But within those few minutes, thankfully, the police did come and take away the man, and everything calmed down. And somebody had called an ambulance. The old man had been taken away, and the car we were in was damaged. And so anyway, there was no driver. We couldn't carry on. But anyway, we waited and got things sorted out. But that moment of peace and just absolute chaos and aggression and violence, and a few moments of peace from God, and the whole situation changed. So I know that if you stay connected with the one above, that power of peace is not just something you experience, but God's power of peace can make an angry mob become completely quiet. And so, yes, it's my experience that God's power is always, always there to help you if you stay connected with God.
Yeah, beautiful. So we have covered power of truth and power of wisdom and power to discern and power to choose at the right time. The main thing is receiving power, but using powers at the right time, in the right way, with the right person. So can you give us a little bit of how to use the powers at the right time, in the right way? And what should we practice for that?
If in any situation I have the practice of going inside and connecting with the source of truth, if I've created that link over a period of time in which I'm able to make that connection, then the clear intellect will be able to catch a signal from God, and I will know what it is I need to say, what it is I need to do. And especially in these times when there's so much uncertainty and there's always a debate, should we do this, should we do that? Everything becomes a big uncertainty, a big question mark. My own personal connection with God and my ability to catch that signal is going to tell me what it is I need to do.
So the message we take today from this session, that for our own safety, our own protection, for our own progress, empowerment, and serve the atmosphere around and people around, it is time to take responsibility. And so understanding that, yes, we also would like to mention that we have classes, as Sister Jayanti mentioned, about Raj Yoga meditation classes. We have scheduled different classes in different languages, and we are going to show you on the screen. But before we do that, we want to show Sister Jayanti a small tour of our center, retreat place, because we were expecting Dadi Janki to come here. But this video was taken to send it to Sister Mohini. She asked us to send videos of your centers without any people around, so she can watch and she can see our centers, how they are set up. And so we recently made this video and we want to show you that video. So if you don't mind, if you want.
Please.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I didn't know you had such beautiful places.
So Jayanti, we have 3 centers and a retreat place. In retreat place, we have Char Dham, 4 pilgrimage places, which we did not show in this movie. But yes, thank you very much. But I would like you to conduct 2 minutes meditation. And
Sure.
yes, go ahead. Yes.
I go on that inner journey and come to that awareness of peace within. I am the eternal being of light, the soul, a being of peace. And as I begin to feel peaceful, I realize that peace is my natural state of being. This is how I used to be. This is how I am eternally. And in this awareness of peace, I can feel the presence of God, the being of light. God's light, God's love reach the soul. I absorb the light and love within myself. God's light, God's love reaches out to the entire human family. The light shows us the way out of the darkness, and the love heals, empowers, and transforms human souls back to their original state of purity. And the light and love reach out into the wide world all around. And the light ends the darkness and brings the dawn so that a better day can begin. One filled with light and love and peace. I return back to the physical dimension, bringing this peace and light and love with myself. Om Shanti. Thank you to Ranjan Ben and the team and everyone listening. Om
Thank you so much, Jayanti Vance, and thank you so much from our hearts. You have given us time and really made this Navaratri to begin with. The first day to you gave us power, and definitely we will become powerful in the next 9 days. And thank you for being with us. Thank you.
Okay. Om
Thank
Shanti.
you. Thank you, Didi.
Om Shanti Didi. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, Didi.
Thank you.
Didi. Thank you. Thank you
Om
so much,
Shanti
Didi.
Thank you
Didi.
so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Om
Om
Shanti,
Shanti.
Baba.
Thank you. Thank you. Om Shanti, Didi. Thank you very much.
Om Shanti, Baba.
Om Shanti.
Shanti.
Now please take note of the dear dates of the courses that we are going to offer in the month of November. So, those like the picture.
Thank you for your inspiration, for your life and love. Thank you for your recognition of the one above. Thank you for your sweet compassion, for your life of truth. Thank you for walking on this earth. Thank you for being you. The river flows back to the ocean. The sun must set as the day it ends, and so shall all of us. The gift of silence is returned to each one's soul by soul. I know you hold it in your heart as you watch your life unfold. So go to the sea, flow to the ocean, fly like a bird to his arms. Take all the love of all who will miss you, but no